Welcome to Talk Treatises. I'm your host, and this is the deep dive, where we take the written word, whether it's philosophy, classic literature, sometimes even obscure manifestos, and we treat it with the absolute seriousness it demands.
Or at least the seriousness we think it demands.
Usually, yes. Today, though, I have to admit, I'm a little baffled by what's on my desk. I've got a whole stack of notes here. I've got a highlighted text, and I have our resident expert in systematic theology and literary hermeneutics sitting right across from me.
It is good to be here.
But the text itself, it's a short story by W.W. Jacobs.
It is. And I can already see the skepticism on your face.
Well, yeah. I mean, W.W. Jacobs, this is the guy who wrote The Monkey's Paw, right? He's known for horror, or more often these really light, humorous tales about sailors and dock workers in London. It's usually very low-stakes comedy.
On the surface, yes.
But looking at the notes you've prepared for this, you're calling it the Theology of Audacity? You've got references here to St. Augustine, to Kierkegaard, the Eschaton. Are we even reading the same story?
We are reading the same text, but we are absolutely reading it through very different lenses. You see, on the surface, yes, the narrative of Katesby and the Truefit household, specifically the story titled Establishing Relations. It's a comedy. It's about a sailor trying to get a date.
Right.
But if you strip away all those genre expectations and you look strictly at the text itself, the symbols, the moral choices he makes, the very structure of the dialogue, it reveals itself as a profound theological treatise.
A treatise.
It's a seminal work, in my view, of what we call the Dockland School of Theology.
The Dockland School. I have a feeling that's a term you and maybe a few of your colleagues invented over a pint.
It's a niche field, I will grant you that, but it's a vital one. The argument here is that Jacobs is wrestling with the central tension of the post-industrial soul. He's asking a fundamental question. How does a profane person, someone from the gritty, chaotic working world, how do they enter into a sacred relationship? And the text argues that it's not through being good. It's not through following the rules or being honest even. It's through what the text calls cheek.
Cheek, as in audacity. Being a bit cheeky, a bit rude.
Precisely. Audacia. The text proposes that cheek is a form of radical disruptive grace. It's the force that breaks down social and even moral barriers. So my mission today really is to convince you that this isn't just a funny little story about a lie. It's a roadmap for salvation.
Wow. Okay, that is a big swing. I'm deeply skeptical, but I have to say I'm also intrigued. I am willing to be convinced. So let's look at the evidence. The story starts with our protagonist, Mr. Richard Katesby.
Yes.
And right off the bat, the setting seems to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We open at the dock gates.
We do. And we have to pause right there before we go any further. The dock gates. In literature, in theology, thresholds are everything. Katesby is emerging from the docks.
He's crossing a line.
He's crossing a line. The text says the bustle of the day had departed. He's leaving the world of commerce, of labor, of noise and heat. He's the second officer of a ship called the Wizard.
The Wizard. That seems a bit on the nose, doesn't it?
It does, but it's intentional. It suggests he has some mastery over the elements, right? He's a kind of magician of the sea. But he's tired. He's coming out of this hot, chaotic environment, and the text says he is searching for coolness and fresh air.
Right.
This isn't just about physical comfort. It's a spiritual longing. He's looking for purity. He's looking for a way out of the daily grind, the profane.
And he finds it, or at least he thinks he finds it, in this place called Bashford's Lane. I have to read this description because it's really quite lovely. It talks about towering spars, white steps, and polished brass knockers. It sounds so idyllic.
It's more than idyllic. It's intimidating. Bashford's Lane isn't just a nice street, it's the temple. The towering spars are like the pillars of a cathedral reaching for the sky. But look at those details you mentioned. Dutch cleanliness, polished brass. This represents the law. It represents order. It's a place where dirt and chaos are not allowed. And our hero, Katesby, he's a sailor. He is, by his very definition, a bit rough around the edges.
So he's walking into a zone of judgment.
A complete zone of judgment. He is the pilgrim, the sinner, approaching the holy city. And then he sees it. He sees the reason for the pilgrimage. He sees number 5. And specifically, he sees a figure in the window.
The beatific vision.
Beatific vision, exactly.
Beatific vision. That's a really heavy theological term. Can you break that down for me? We're talking about a guy seeing a pretty girl in a window, right?
In a purely secular reading, yes, of course. But in theology, the beatific vision is the ultimate direct self-communication of God to an individual. It's seeing the divine face to face. And when Katesby sees this girl, Prudence, though he doesn't know her name yet, he doesn't just think, wow, she's cute.
No, he has a complete crisis of faith.
A crisis of faith. He says, no girl is so beautiful as that. He actually questions his own eyesight. He thinks it must be the glass.
He thinks it's a distortion.
Precisely. He cannot believe that such perfection could possibly exist in his reality. It's the classic reaction of the sinner unable to comprehend the perfection of the divine. He assumes there must be a trick of the light, a flaw in the medium, but it's not the glass. It's the sudden, overwhelming presence of beauty.
And this vision, it leads to some very strange behavior on his part. He walks past the house. Then he turns around and he walks past it again. He does this 4 times. I should say, if I saw a man doing this outside my house, I would be calling the police. But you're saying this is, what, some kind of ritual?
It's the struggle between free will and predestination played out on a London street. Katesby is actively trying to walk away. His rational mind, the mind of the second officer, is telling him, keep walking, go to the station, don't be a creep. The text says he went on a few paces and then went by again.
But something keeps pulling him back.
He is drawn back by what he calls the dangerous part of the heart. This is irresistible grace. He physically cannot leave the orbit of number 5. He is caught in its gravity.
And speaking of leaving, we need to talk about the second engineer. Because right as he's having this spiritual crisis on the pavement, he remembers he has plans. He's supposed to meet the second engineer at Aldgate Station.
Ah, yes, the second engineer. In any serious Docklands exegesis, the second engineer is the antagonist.
The antagonist, he seems harmless.
He's not evil, not in the classic sense, but he is banality. He represents the world. He is everything Katesby is trying to escape.
He's the guy who just wants to go get a beer and, complain about work.
Exactly. He represents the safe path. Meeting the engineer is predictable, it's safe, it's easy, it's the bustle he just left, just in a different form. Katesby has a clear choice. Go to Aldgate Station and have a perfectly mediocre evening, or stay in Bashford's Lane and risk everything. Humiliation, arrest for a vision in a window.
And he chooses the risk. But he doesn't just knock on the door, does he? He's smarter than that. He goes to a pub, the Beehive.
He needs intelligence. He needs information. He enters the Beehive, which in this text acts as a kind of oracle or a library. He orders a glass of beer, but that's just the admission fee. He's really there to extract the logos, the word, the truth about the inhabitants of number 5.
And this is where the cheek really kicks in for the first time. He doesn't just ask the landlord, hey, who lives in that house? He invents a lie. He spins this whole elaborate yarn about an uncle.
The parable of the uncle. It's a brilliant piece of improvisation. He invents an uncle aged 5 minutes. He tells the landlord, I'm looking for my uncle. He lives at number 5. Why does he do this?
Because asking directly would be suspicious.
Of course, it would mark him as an outsider with potentially nefarious intent. He has to use deceit to get to the truth. It's a foundational principle of the text.
It's like lying for the Lord, almost.
It's lying for love, which in this framework is the same thing, and it works perfectly. The landlord, who represents the oblivious literal world, falls for it completely. He corrects Katesby, no, there's no uncle there. That's Mrs. Truefitt's house.
And just like that, he gets the whole dossier. Mrs. Truefitt, the widow, Prudence, the daughter, and most importantly, Fred.
Fred, the missing piece, the key that unlocks everything. The landlord reveals that Mrs. Truefitt has a son named Fred who went away to New Zealand 7 years ago and hasn't been heard from since.
That is a very, very specific detail. New Zealand, 7 years.
It is the gap in the armor of the household. Katesby realizes in that instant that the sacred space of number 5 is incomplete. It has a Fred-shaped hole in it. And this is where the audacity, the audacia, fully ignites. He decides in that moment to fill that hole.
Now for a row, he says. That's the line. Now for a row. It sounds like he's looking for a fight, for trouble.
He is looking for disruption. He understands instinctively that he cannot enter the house as Mr. Katesby, stranger. He can only enter as Fred, the son. It is the moment he decides on the great imposture.
I mean, let's be blunt here. Isn't that just identity theft? We're framing this as high theology, but practically speaking, this is a con. He's about to prey on a widow who misses her son.
Yeah.
That's a cruel thing to do.
It is morally defensible only if you accept the core premise of the story, that the end goal, which is relationship communion, justifies the means, which is cheek, Katesby is attempting to enter the family of believers through imputation.
Imputation.
It's a theological concept. He doesn't have the bloodline. He isn't Fred by nature. But he is going to claim the rights and privileges of the son by sheer force of will, by his audacious act of faith in himself.
So he marches back to Bashford's lane. He goes up those pristine white steps. He knocks. And when the door opens, he doesn't hesitate for a second. He sees the old woman, Mrs. Truefit, and he just yells, "Mother!"
The confrontation at the threshold. It is so visceral. He doesn't just say it. He acts it. He embraces Mrs. Truefit. He then turns to the beautiful girl from the window, Prudence, and he kisses her.
He kisses her. A girl he has never met in his life. That is incredibly bold.
It is the kiss of peace, forcibly applied. But look at the reaction he gets. It's not a warm, tearful family reunion. Prudence delivers a box on the ears.
She slaps him hard.
A physical, immediate rebuke. The immune system of the household is reacting to the invading virus. They know he isn't Fred. They know something is deeply wrong.
And the accusations start flying instantly. Mrs. Truefit says he's been drinking. Prudence says he's mad. They're trying to categorize him to put a label on this bizarre behavior.
Right, because they can understand a drunk. They can understand a lunatic. What they cannot comprehend is a theological usurper. They can't process someone who can look them right in the eye with total sincerity and say, "Don't you know your own Fred?"
That line is just pure gaslighting, isn't it? Don't you know your Fred? He's trying to make them question their own reality, their own memories.
He is challenging what philosophers call the scandal of particularity. He is insisting that his performance of sonship is more real than the biological, historical reality. He is demanding that they view him through the lens of faith, not the lens of sight.
But then the mood shifts, doesn't it? Mrs. Truefit stops being angry and she starts getting terrified. She comes to a different conclusion. She thinks the real Fred must be dead.
This is a crucial pivot in the narrative. Mrs. Truefit interprets Katesby's madness not as aggression, but as a sign of grief or trauma. She thinks, if this stranger is acting this crazy, maybe he's the bearer of bad news. The fear of death is what opens the door.
Not the lie itself.
No. If he were just a drunk, they'd have thrown him out and called the police. But because he now represents a possible tragedy, a story that needs to be heard, she lets him into the parlor.
The inner sanctum.
The inner sanctum. He has successfully crossed the threshold. He is now in the room with the velvet chairs and the ornamental china. He's inside.
And this is where Prudence really starts to become the central figure. While her mother is panicking, Prudence is just watching him. She's observing. And the text says she looks for signs of madness in his eyes, but she sees something else entirely.
She sees tender and respectful admiration. Prudence is the wisdom figure here. Her name is no accident. She sees right through the lie. She knows he isn't her brother Fred, but she also sees the motive. She recognizes this man is doing this insane, stupid thing because he wants to be near me.
I suppose that's flattering in a very stalkerish kind of way.
In the Theology of Jacobs, it is the highest form of flattery imaginable. It is audacity for the sake of beauty. And Prudence is intrigued by it. She whispers to her mother, he is mad to keep up the charade, to manage the situation, but her eyes are telling a very different story.
So Mrs. Truefit decides she can't handle this. She's going to call the cops, or rather, she announces she's going to go fetch a policeman herself.
She is summoning the law. Mrs. Truefit appeals to the secular authority of the state to solve what is fundamentally a spiritual problem.
And Katesby panics. This is the first time his nerve breaks. He says, I really think I had better go after her. He tries to bail.
It is the failure of nerve. The concrete reality of the policeman shatters his cheek. He realizes he's about to get arrested for breaking and entering or fraud or just being a public nuisance. He tries to flee the temple.
But Prudence stops him. And this is the moment that changes absolutely everything. She stands in front of the door, blocks his exit, and challenges him. She says, you're afraid.
She traps him. This is so fascinating. She knows he's a liar. She knows the police are on their way, but she will not let him leave. Why would she do that?
She's testing him.
She is testing his resolve. She says, I shouldn't like to be in your shoes. It's almost a taunt. She's daring him to see this through.
She's playing with him. And under that intense pressure, Katesby finally cracks. He confesses. He drops the Fred act completely. He says, it's the heart. I saw you standing in the window.
The confession. He strips away the heresy of false sonship and offers the naked, vulnerable truth of his desire. I did all of this because of you. And her response, after all that, she just calls him stupid.
A judgment? Stupid.
A clear verdict on the foolishness of his plan. But, and this is the moment of grace, She immediately acts to save him. She hides him.
The small folding doors.
The folding doors. We have to spend some time here. This is the purgatorial interlude. She pushes him into this small, dark space between the rooms behind these folding doors.
It's a cupboard, basically, a little closet.
It's a liminal space. He is neither in the parlor, which we can think of as heaven, nor is he out in the street, which is hell. He is in the betwixt and between. He's in purgatory. And he has to stay there while the women eat their supper.
That is just exquisite torture. The text makes a point of saying he can hear the pleasant clatter of crockery.
Imagine that. You are hungry, you are cramped, you are in complete darkness. And just a few feet away, the very people you want to be with are eating, laughing, living their lives. This is the exclusion from the communal meal. It represents the state of the almost chosen. He is close enough to hear the joy, to smell the food, but he hasn't yet paid the full price to be allowed to enter into it.
I feel like there's a direct connection here to the myth of Tantalus, right? The food and water are always just out of reach.
Absolutely. It's a classic torment. But unlike Tantalus, Katesby has a promise of eventual release. He isn't damned for eternity. He's merely being detained. He's being purged of his stupidity.
And while he's in there, in the dark, he learns a lot more about Prudence. He overhears her lying to her mother. She tells Mrs. Truefit that the madman, Katesby, just ran away while she wasn't looking.
Prudence is revealed as a cunning agent of grace. She is not a passive idol in a window. She is active. She manipulates the truth just as skillfully as Katesby did. She protects him from the law in the form of the policeman who comes and goes, but she also keeps him trapped in the dark.
And then she does something very deliberate. She loudly, for his benefit, mentions to her mother that Mrs. Truefit will be out the next evening.
She is broadcasting the schedule to the prisoner in the cupboard. She's saying, "Come back tomorrow night when the law is absent." It is a clear invitation disguised as casual conversation. Katesby, listening in the dark, realizes her resourcefulness savored of practice.
Savored of practice. That little phrase implies she's done this before, which honestly raises some serious questions about Prudence. How many sailors has she hidden in her folding doors?
Prudence is a complex figure. Perhaps she's bored. Perhaps she's looking for a very specific kind of suitor, one who has enough cheek to play this dangerous game. The safe men, the second engineers of the world, they would never end up in the folding doors.
They wouldn't even get past the front step.
Not even close. She is filtering for a very specific personality type. She isn't looking for a nice boy.
She's looking for the bad boy.
She's looking for the audacious boy, the one who is willing to break the rules to get to her.
So finally, he gets released. It's past 10 o'clock at night. He's been in that cupboard for hours. He walks back to his ship, and his concluding thought for the day is, there's nothing pays in this world like cheek.
The doctrine of cheek. He interprets his survival not as a gift of grace from Prudence, but as a victory for his own audacity. If he had been honest, he would be in jail, or, at best, alone. Because he was cheeky, he has, essentially, a date for tomorrow night. In his mind, cheat is the highest virtue.
But the story isn't over. That's just Act 1. Act 2 is the return. And this is where things get even more interesting, because now he has to go back. But first, he has to deal with the second engineer again.
The return of the mundane. The second engineer is back, and he notices Katesby is dressing up. He's adjusting his tie 10 times.
It's a ritual of preparation.
Yes, absolutely. Katesby is cleansing himself. He puts on a clean collar. He is preparing to meet the high priestess in the temple. But the second engineer is cynical. He sees this preparation, and he mocks it. He says, "Female society is softening."
Female society is softening. That's such a strange insult. What does that even mean?
It reveals the engineer's entire worldview. He believes in the hard, the mechanical, the efficient. He views relationships, female society as something that makes a man soft, weak, vulnerable. He is the voice of a kind of toxic stoicism. He tries to drag Katesby back to the beehive for a drink, back to the world of men and beer.
And Katesby has to lie again. You can't just say, I'm in love with a girl I just met by impersonating your dead brother. He has to say, I have an appointment. He uses a business term to justify a romantic pilgrimage.
He translates the sacred into the profane so the engineer will understand and accept it. He has to shake him off. The text says he is in sheer despair at the engineer's persistence. The world clings to you. It does not want you to leave for a higher calling.
So he finally escapes. He gets back to number 5. He knocks 4 times again. The persistence is key.
And Prudence opens the door. She feigns surprise. You, she says.
Which is just pure theater. She told him to come. She set the whole thing up.
It's the dance. It's the ritual. She has to pretend to be the offended party so that he can play the role of the penitent. He apologizes profusely. He says, I want to explain. And then they're sitting in the parlor. The folding doors are wide open now. He is in the light.
And just when everything is going well, just when Prudence admits that she's actually glad he is there, that his audacity has paid off, we get the interruption.
Judgment.
A harsh voice from the other room. Can't find the knife powder.
Enter Mrs. Porter.
Let's talk about Mrs. Porter, because she is a character. The description is, well, it's not flattering. Tall, bony, with red arms. She's the charwoman.
Mrs. Porter is the nemesis. She is the theological concept of contrapasso made flesh.
Poetic justice.
Poetic justice. In Dante's Inferno, the punishment always fits the crime. Here, the punishment perfectly fits the lie. Katesby spent the last 24 hours pretending to be a son he wasn't, Fred. Now the universe balances the scales. Mrs. Porter takes one look at him and claims he is the husband he isn't.
Joe. She screams his name. Joe.
The horror of false identification. It is the most perfect trap imaginable. Katesby cannot prove he isn't Joe. Why? Because he already proved that identity is performative when he successfully claimed to be Fred. He destroyed the very concept of objective identity. Now he is drowning in the chaos that he himself created.
It's a complete nightmare scenario. He's claimed by this Amazon of a woman, as the text calls her. She throws her arms around him. She asks, where's your art?
Where is your heart? It's a brilliant line. On the surface, she means, why did you abandon me, Joe? Don't you love me? But the text is asking a deeper question. Where does your allegiance lie, Katesby? Are you a man of truth, or are you just a drifting identity, a Joe to anyone who happens to claim you?
And he's trapped by social convention. This is, the turn of the 20th century? He can't punch her. He can't shove a working-class woman away. He just has to stand there and take it.
He is completely paralyzed. And the worst part of it all, the audience. Prudence and her mother are watching the whole thing unfold.
They are enjoying it. The text specifically says they watch with innocent enjoyment. Mrs. Truefit even eggs her on. She says, you've got him now. Take care he doesn't run away from you again.
They are mocking him. It is a public shaming. Mrs. Truefit, who he tried to claim as a mother, essentially hands him over to the executioner. Take him. He's yours now. It's the ultimate humiliating rejection of his false claim.
And Mrs. Porter offers to kiss him again. She says to Mrs. Truefit, I can do it again, ma'am. That is just chilling. It's like a threat.
It represents a binding commitment without love. That is the hell that Katesby is facing in that moment. Mrs. Porter is the anti-Prudence. Prudence is distant, beautiful, and ideal. Mrs. Porter is immediate, physical, abrasive. She is the knife powder.
Why knife powder? You mentioned this in the outline, and the phrase is so strange.
Knife powder is a gritty, abrasive substance. It's used to polish steel by scratching away the impurities. It's not gentle. Mrs. Porter is the reality check. She scrapes away the fantasy. Katesby wanted to live in a dream world where he could just be Fred. Mrs. Porter is the gritty reality of the world, saying, no, you are Joe, you are mine. You have responsibilities you've been avoiding.
So Katesby just stands there. He grinds his teeth. He recognizes the absurdity of his position. He can't win this. Logic won't work here. In Mrs. Porter's eyes, he is Joe, and that's the only reality that matters in that room.
He chooses the only option he has left, silence and retreat. He realizes he's been completely checkmated. He puts on his hat. He passes out into the darkening street.
The walk of shame. He's been cast out of the temple. He goes back into the darkness.
It looks like total defeat. It looks like the end of the story. His cheek failed. The lie finally caught up with him and destroyed him.
But this is the most important but in the entire text. He doesn't keep walking. He doesn't run away.
The resurrection of hope. A lesser man, the second engineer, for example, would have run back to the docks, gotten on the Wizard, and sailed to China, never looking back. Katesby stops. He turns back for one last look.
Why? Why would you go back to the place where you were just so profoundly humiliated by a charwoman in front of the woman you love?
Because the vision of Prudence is stronger than the shame of Mrs. Porter. He has to know. Was it real? Was any of it real? Or was it all just a cruel joke?
And she's there. She's standing on the step.
And she delivers the gospel, the good news. She whispers, so only he can hear. Mrs. Porter will not be here tomorrow night.
That one line just gives me chills. It's so simple, but it changes absolutely everything.
It is the eschaton. It is the end times of the story. Notice it doesn't end with a wedding or even a kiss. It ends with a promise and an invitation. The monster is gone. The way is open. Come back.
So wait a minute. Does this mean the test was successful? Was the entire Mrs. Porter incident a planned test?
In the Dockland's theology, yes, it has to be. Prudence, the divine wisdom, allowed the trial to happen. She allowed the Amazonian Mrs. Porter to humiliate Katesby. Why?
To see if he would stay.
To see if he would stay. Anyone can flirt when it's easy. True devotion, true cheek is standing there while a charwoman calls you Joe and still having the courage to come back the next day.
So she rewards his persistence, not his honesty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honesty is a cheap virtue in the world of this text. Persistence, the willingness to suffer humiliation for the sake of the relation, that is the rare coin. She's telling him, you have proven you want this enough to be publicly shamed for it. You pass the trial.
That is a fascinating, if slightly masochistic, view of love and courtship.
It's very existential, isn't it? It reminds me of the great debate between Jean-Paul Sartre and W.W. Jacobs. You know, Sartre's famous play, No Exit.
Of course. Hell is other people.
Right. For Sartre, the other is a trap. The gaze of the other looks at you and objectifies you, turns you into a thing. But in Jacobs's Folding Doors, the other, Prudence, is a playful judge. She traps you, yes. She humiliates you, yes. But she also offers redemption. Sartre sees no exit. Jacob says, there is an exit, but you have to wait until the charwoman leaves.
It's a theology of the second chance. Or in this case, the third or fourth chance.
It is. He just has to keep knocking.
I want to pivot to something we touched on a little earlier, the true Phician archetype. You mentioned this in your notes regarding its place in modern philosophy. Who exactly is the true Phician figure?
It's Prudence. In so many philosophical and narrative systems, you have a simple binary. You have the law, represented by the mother or the policeman, and you have the lawbreaker, the trickster, Katesby. Prudence represents the synthesis of the two.
How so?
She upholds the structure. She doesn't let Katesby burn the house down with his lies, but she also manipulates it from within. She is the system administrator who knows the rules so well that she can create a backdoor to save the user she finds interesting.
I like that. The hacker of the household.
Precisely. We need that archetype. If we only have Katesby's, we have total chaos. If we only have Mrs. Truefit's, we have rigid, boring stagnation. We need the Prudence figure who can say, I know you're lying and it's stupid, but I'm going to hide you in the cupboard anyway because I see potential in your audacity.
She is the agent of creative and flexible grace.
The perfect phrasing.
All right, this brings us to my favorite part of the show, and honestly, the part that usually gets us the most interesting emails. It's time for the thought experiments.
Let's do it.
Now, the usual disclaimer. These are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not try to impersonate long-lost sons in Wapping. Do not hide in other people's cupboards.
Unless you are fully prepared for the metaphysical knife powder.
Right. So, experiment number 1. You've titled this one, The Universal Joe.
Yes. So, we look at the Mrs. Porter incident as a model. Katesby tells a lie about his identity, claiming to be Fred, and he is immediately punished by being assigned a worse false identity, Joe. What if this wasn't a coincidence? What if this was a universal law of justice?
Okay, lay it out for me.
Imagine a universe where every single time you tell a lie about who you are, to impress a date, to get a job, to sound cool on social media, the universe automatically assigns you a nemesis identity that binds to you.
So if I'm at a party and I say, yeah, I'm a semi-pro rock climber, just to sound interesting.
Instantly, a stranger walks into that party, points at you, and tearfully claims you are their disgraced veterinarian who botched their hamster surgery. And here's the critical catch. Everyone in the room believes them, not you. You are locked into the bad vet identity until you publicly confess the rock climber lie.
That is absolutely terrifying. It's like instantaneous karma, but specifically for imposter syndrome.
It would fundamentally reshape all human interaction. Would it eliminate deceit, creating a perfectly honest world? Or would we just become incredibly paranoid and never make any claims about ourselves at all?
I think we'd be paralyzed. We'd be so afraid of becoming Joe that we'd never claim to be anything. You'd ask, are you a podcaster? And I'd say, I attempt to speak into a microphone from time to time, but I make no formal claims of proficiency.
Exactly. It suggests that Katesby's cheek, his willingness to endure the Joe label and come back anyway, is the only thing that keeps us free. In a universal Joe world, we're all just slaves to the last person who recognized us, truly or falsely.
Wow. Okay, let's move on before I have an identity crisis. Experiment number 2, the infinite filling down doors.
This one is a little darker, I think. We go back to the moment in the cupboard. Prudence pushes Katesby in. She says, wait here.
But she never lets him out.
She forgets. Or perhaps more chillingly, she decides to test his patience forever. Katesby is trapped in the folding doors. He can hear the crockery. He can hear the laughter. He can hear life happening just inches away. But 10 p.m. never comes.
The invitation to emerge is never given.
So he's just waiting. Forever. He becomes the eternal almost. He is the perpetual candidate. The philosophical question is this: at what point does his hope curdle into absurdity? If he waits for an hour, he is a faithful suitor. If he waits for a week, he is a madman. If he waits for eternity, what is he?
He's a ghost. He just becomes part of the architecture of the house. A sad story they tell.
It connects back to Tantalus, but it's modernized for the friend zone or the modern situationship. You are kept close enough to hear the clatter of the communal meal, but you are never invited to sit at the table. The text seems to argue that you must either be let out or force the door yourself. Perpetual, safe waiting in the cupboard is a form of spiritual death.
That's incredibly bleak. But I suppose the lesson is kick the door down eventually.
Or at least knock loudly from the inside.
Well, on that rather claustrophobic note, I think we have thoroughly dismantled W.W. Jacobs. We've turned a simple comedy into a tragedy and then back into a theological comedy again.
We have successfully established relations with the text.
We have indeed. And for all of you listening, if you want to read this story, Establishing Relations by W.W. Jacobs, I highly recommend it. It's very funny, even if you ignore everything we just said. But with the theology, it might just be a masterpiece.
Just be sure to watch out for Mrs. Porter. She's everywhere.
Indeed. The final provocation for you to mull over is this. In your own life, are you waiting for the knife powder to show up and define you, or are you willing to knock a fifth time? This has been Talk Treatises. Thank you for joining us.